Hello, everybody. It's Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weave from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we're Kenny and Renny, and that would make this the Kenny and Renny post-game show. The first of the year, ladies and gentlemen, and it's almost like the Jets understood that it was a big occasion, the first Kenny and Renny of the year, and they wanted to give us a little something to talk about, and boy, oh boy, did they ever. This is like if you're going out and you had a checklist of all the things that you wanted to get done heading into a season, this was that game. I mean, hey, you wanted to correct your special teams, 2 power play goals. You don't allow a goal on the penalty kill. You don't allow a goal at all, for that matter. Depth scoring up and down the lineup. You got it all taken care of here. The Winnipeg Jets basically with a dream game against a team that I think is the overwhelming favorite by pundits across NHL coverage to win the Stanley Cup this season. That would include me. You can put me in there as my pick at the beginning of the year for the Stanley Cup is the Edmonton Oilers. Let's get this out of the way. That was not the Edmonton Oilers' best effort. Didn't look anything like the team that I saw in the playoffs last year. Sloppy. Didn't look like they had a lot of investment. Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid looked very, very pedestrian in that game. Their goaltender clearly having a hard time. Basically a repeat for the Edmonton Oilers of what they started the season with last year, a drubbing at the hands of the Vancouver Canucks who did it to them last year. The Winnipeg Jets doing it this time around. I think I'll say this. A lot of this holds true to what I was saying before this. I think the Winnipeg Jets get to their game faster than most teams do in the regular season. I think tonight was just a great example of that. The Jets look good, shutting down lanes, really great forecheck, good defensive zone, despite the fact that they allowed 30-plus shots. You're talking about, the vast majority of them weren't overly dangerous. Connor Hellebuck, great in this game. Tick that box as well. Hey, a box that almost, hadn't been ticked before for the Winnipeg Jets. Rasmus Kupari getting a goal. Hey, I'll tell you this. We'll get into this afterwards, but, Ken and a lot of the other writers in this town who thought that Rasmus Kupari was the second coming last season, they finally get to be right. They finally get to be right. After a year, Rasmus Kupari scores, and now he's clearly the Winnipeg Jets' best player. He's going to be the driver for them. But in all seriousness, 70 games without a goal, and Rasmus Kupari finally puts one in. You know that, hey, you could see by his celebration how happy he was to get the monkey off of his back. I'm just going to, before we bring Ken in here, I just want to say, I'm not dressed like a Vittorio Rossi man right now. That will be corrected, and it will be corrected in short order, as you're going to see me wearing my Vittorio Rossi clothing coming up here in just a couple of days when the Winnipeg Jets take on the Chicago Blackhawks. If you wanted to be ready for Friday, just like Renny is going to be, what you need to do is head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corridon Avenue. Walk in, loudly proclaim that Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will take care of you. And you know what? I'm going to step a little out of my comfort zone here, and I'm going to address something before Ken gets in here, something he usually does. But sweet Lou Ferlin back with the Kenny and Renny show this season. You've seen this board for a long time. Lou Ferlin, real estate agent. There's his number. There's his phone number. There's his fax number. Never had an email. Well, Renny had to crack the whip. Finally, it gets fixed. And should I take all the credit for it? I probably should. Ken's not here, so I'm going to in the meantime. But if you want to get hold of Sweet Lou, a lot of Louisms out there, some Louisms already in the show. I love the one about him ordering a Big Mac at Burger King, and they made it for him anyways. That's Sweet Lou. That's the power Sweet Lou's got. And you really want to see the power, get him as your real estate agent, whether you're buying or selling. He's the guy to go see, folks. All right, now that I've stolen Ken's thunder, which is always the plan when I start, it's the main goal of starting the show by myself. It's time to let him in and have his say. So you know what the drill is, everybody. Time to bring in Kenny. Kenny, almost inexcusable. We didn't have Sweet Lou's email in there for so long. The only reason we got away with it is because he's so iconic. I think a number of people around the city have his email tattooed on their lower back, so you can see it at concert festivals and different kind of things like that. But great to have you back in the show here. Great to be back doing this, Ken. And boy, oh boy, last year we got to talk about a Winnipeg Jets team that put up 110 points. So a lot of these shows that we did were shows where we walked in and just talked so much about the Winnipeg Jets, what they do right. And boy, oh boy, we're right back to it early this season.
Yeah, no doubt. First and foremost, you can steal all the thunder, but you can't steal Stacy's thunder, Sean. You can steal all of mine, but Stacy Desley taking care of the graphics, so
Yes, she did.
good on her. So
Stacy knows I love her. Stacy knows
oh yeah.
Stacy knows I respect her as well. Unlike some other people who need to start pulling their weight around here.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, hey, I'd like to, again, this is one game out of 82. We're not going to draw a lot of conclusions here, but we are going to talk about what we saw, Sean, for sure. A lot of people accusing me of drinking Kool-Aid yesterday on the preview show.
Really?
Turns out some of the things I said were accurate, at least for one game this year. So like I said, there'll be no victory laps after game one, but if people were wondering why I thought the Jets were still a playoff team, a lot of those things were on display this evening. Now, again, they have to do that over the course of 82 games with consistency in order to become one. But as you touched on, I mean, the checklist is pretty thorough. And another one of the things that we talked about a lot last year, Josh Morrissey, Sean. I mean, 2 assists in the game. The play that he makes on the Kapari goal is absolutely, super heads up play. Incredible read to get there. Incredible pass to Kapari for the offside one-timer. And as an astute fan pointed out early on, I mean, even on the Jets' first goal, it's Morrissey that makes the breakup right on the Nugent Hopkins turnover. It gets the entire play started. So I love the fact that Josh is going to be used on the penalty kill this year as well. I mean, the Jets were very disciplined tonight, but I mean, that really helped Morrissey just under 24 minutes. And this is one of the reasons why I have him not only being a finalist for the award, but potentially winning the Norris Trophy this year. And yeah, I mean, I know you've had plenty of opportunity to beat on Rasmus Kapari. I mean, hey, he hasn't scored in 70 games. That's a fact. This was his first in 70. That's a long time to go without a goal. But that's the type of thing that I had seen in practice. He didn't see it a lot in the game. There's no doubt about that. This is a guy that can create with his speed. Now, again, can he be a double-digit goal scorer? I'm not sure. He has the ability to do so, but he has to show it. So it's a big start for him. Obviously, this was something that, I mean, the Jets had solid contributions from the fourth line all of last year, but Kapari needed to continue that in order to stay in the lineup because David Gustafsson is right there pushing with him. So, and we know that Brad Lambert is in reserve. So for him, like you said, humongous relief. Whatever animal you want to throw off your shoulder after you go almost, more than a year without scoring. And, January of 2023 is a long time ago. So for him, important. Sean, we talked about, let's go to the rest of it afterward. But again, Connor Hellebuyck, solid night. But let's not confuse this with Connor Hellebuyck being under siege tonight, right, Sean? I mean, he was very solid. He made some important saves early on when the Oilers were pressing. I thought, really important save when McDavid went wide and had Hyman go into the back post. That's a good play right there. But he was not under siege when the Jets got their offense going, but he made the saves that were necessary. And he preserved a shutout in a week that, Sean, you saw Hellebuyck in the post game. I mean, he didn't get into what's going on in his life and the family matter, but it's pretty clear that it had affected him emotionally. He got choked up when he was asked about the week itself, and you could tell the Jets were kind of rallying around him. And when you have a Vezina Trophy winner, you don't need a lot of additional motivation. But the Jets heard what was being said about them leading into this game against one of the favorites, and they put out a really impressive effort in game one. And like we said, it's one game, but I mean, that's a pretty important start for the Winnipeg Jets, who had a lot of question marks surrounding them going into the season.
Let's get right into that right off the bat. It may be hard to do it because both you and I were very firmly in the group that thinks that the Winnipeg Jets
Yeah.
are going to make the playoffs. I'll be honest, Elliot Friedman talked a little bit about it. If you saw him
Mm-hmm.
during that game yesterday between the Chicago Blackhawks and the Utah Hockey Club, um, that it seems to him that he's one of the believers of the Jets, but a lot of folks out there aren't. Someone said it, and they said it really well in our chat room here earlier on, that you got all these, people, and I'll say this, the person in the chat room referred to the media, and that's one of those lazy tropes that I do not like, because we're in the media and we're people who probably invest in the Winnipeg Jets more than the vast majority of hockey media out there. And both of us are very calmly thinking that the Jets are going to make the playoffs and it's not going to be that difficult for them to get there. But there is a belief around the league that the Jets, I don't know, maybe last year that was kind of a one-trick pony kind of thing. I don't understand how people think they fall off when it's essentially the same team from last year. And I'm not discounting all the people out there who wanted the Jets to do more in the offseason and try to get better, because in the end, getting to the playoffs is just one goal, but it's not the overarching goal. And I understand people out there thinking that they haven't taken any steps towards the overarching goal. But Ken, just where do you kind of think that it's coming from in the hockey world that there's this thought process that the Winnipeg Jets really shouldn't have been able to pull off what happened here tonight and aren't expected to go far this season?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's sort of back to the lazy-ish narratives that we heard all year. Oh, Scott Arniel was gifted the job. I mean, and let's start there. I mean, Scott Arniel worked a really long time and did a lot of work on himself and the way he conducts his business in getting that second NHL head coaching job. After things didn't go, we know things didn't go well when he was with the Columbus Blue Jackets and lasted a year and a half. I mean, that's true, but he's not the same person, and he's put in a lot of work since that time in a variety of roles: AHL head coach, associate coach, and associate coach the last 2 years under Rick Bowness. And Scott played a big role in terms of some of the X's and O's and some of the commitments that were made team defense wise. I mean, Sean, I talked with Rick Bowness yesterday briefly out in Florida. He's doing very well. Him and Judy enjoying the early stages of retirement from coaching. He's going to do some work on the TV side with TNT coming up here. But I asked him why he thought Scott Arniel was ready. And, Rick's been around the game 5 decades as a coach, and he said it was very clear. Everyone makes mistakes in their first job. I mean, some go better than others. But he talked about the work that Scott Arniel put in, and he reiterated his belief that he was ready to take the job when he was ready to retire. And that was part of the reason why he gave him a lot of opportunity to have his voice heard over the last 2 years. And he's done a good job with that. And again, I was fortunate enough to have a one-on-one conversation with Scott earlier this week after one of the practices. And, he talked about the influence that he had in his life with, dating back to Tom Watt and how he helped teach him how to be an NHLer when he was an 18-year-old rookie, and, playing for Scotty Bowman, and then having some of his coaches in Buffalo say, hey, have you ever thought about coaching after you're done playing? I mean, Scott at the time was like, hey, these guys just don't think I can play or what? They actually saw he had an astute hockey mind and that he could do a good job later on in life. So anyways, we know this is an important thing for him. This is an adopted Manitoban. And I mean, as he pointed out with Paul Edmonds on the pregame show today, Winnipeg's not just his adopted town. I mean, it's his hometown. Yes, he was born in Kingston, but this is where he's chosen to live for the majority of his life. And he said it's not just about a participation ribbon for getting the job. He wants to win here because he knows what it would mean to his adopted city. So anyways, just quickly on that. But in terms of your original question, it goes back to the Jets. There were more people moving out than were moving in free agency. But again, a lot of those people were ignoring the fact that the Jets were a first place team when Vladislav Nemestikov was their second line center. Did Sean Monahan improve that role? Of course he did. Tyler Toffoli had an okay regular season, kind of, got a lot of his points, as you pointed out very eloquently, Sean, against, bottom feeder type of teams, and he didn't have an impact in the playoffs. So That's true. The Jets will miss Brendan Dillon, even though they didn't miss him tonight. There's no disputing that. He brings an element of toughness and, intimidation, but also had a career year with 8 goals, right? I mean, this is a guy who played 20 plus minutes a night, was one of their best penalty killers, and is their most physical player on the back end. So they'll miss him, even though they didn't tonight. But again, those people were ignoring the fact that Jets have the Vezina Trophy winner between the pipes. They have Josh Morrissey, who's one of the top 5 defensemen in the NHL. They have Kyle Connor, who once again is on the board, scoring in the 7th consecutive season opener, and could threaten 40 or 50. And they have a bunch of other really good players in the lineup, and they had 11 forwards that were in double digits last year. So this isn't just a one-line hockey team, and we'll dig in on the rest of the other stuff. But again, the other thing, Sean, too. I mean, the additions didn't play their best in the playoffs. So should it be a surprise that the Jets wanted to give the guys that were doing those jobs before the reinforcements came the opportunity to spread their wings? I mean, that seems like a good idea to me in a lot of fronts. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. This is one game, and we're not going to overreact over one game. But that's one of the reasons why. I mean, why do you have any other theories on why people are sleeping on the Jets?
Well, first, I just wanted to address what you said there. I think it's a fascinating theory behind the idea that the Jets went out and got Sean Monahan, who did so good for the Jets, and you get Tyler Toffoli, who I think it was his second game, he kind of busted out, and it just started looking like all the moves that they made at the trade deadline was everything. And then you're right, those players didn't have an impact in the playoffs. It's fascinating, the idea of a team saying, where we saw them losing those guys and that those guys had taken this team a step forward. It's interesting to think that maybe the team would say, you know what? Maybe we should just give the old team that did all the heavy lifting to get them there a chance to show what they can do. And maybe you were actually better without Sean Monahan and Tyler Toffoli. That's a fascinating thought process there. On paper, it's ludicrous to suggest, but in practice, this lineup, which is basically the exact same forward group that started last year, came out, and at least at the beginning of the season, and there's a conversation to be had whether this lineup is a regular season team and not a playoff team, but they came out and showed basically all the strengths that we saw of this roster last season.
And just a quick one on Monahan. I mean, if the Jets could have kept him on a 3 or 4 year deal, I think they would have been even comfortable on a 4. They wouldn't have gone to 5. And again, I'm not here suggesting that the Jets are better off with Monahan, even though he didn't have any points in the playoffs. I still think he had an impact in the job that he did on the penalty kill and winning draws and all of those things. But my point being that, what we know about the Jets is that they wanted to play a high-paced game, and they got slower after Toffoli arrived. I mean, that even though we know that Cole Perfetti's not a burner, but neither is Tyler Toffoli. He's been a guy that could score, and he did a lot of scoring in his career, but didn't get a ton of impactful goals in that round against Colorado, even though he got on the board late. So I just think it's interesting that, again, those people were ignoring the fact that the Jets aren't just a 2-line hockey team, and their 4th line was all in double digits last year. I mean, that's also a fact. So I know we talked about offense and, will the Jets score enough, or do they have to be a team that wins 2-1 and 3-2? I mean, I still think that is going to be their identity, defense first. But they have the ability to score goals as well. And that was on display this evening against, like you said, Edmonton's in a situation. I just want to touch on them quickly. They're in a situation where it kind of wake me up when it's February. Like, it's no one should be saying, "Oh, the Oilers will never make the Cup final because they got blown out 6-0 in the season opener." That's also inaccurate. So let's not overreact there. But the concerns we've had about the Oilers, Sean, they need to upgrade their defense. I mean, Ty Emberson, I think, is an NHLer, but I don't see him as a 20-minute a game guy on the second pairing. I mean, that not for a team that's going to try to win the Stanley Cup. Not for me. And I'm not blaming this on Emberson. He was fine, but he's being put in a position that he can't succeed in. So, and it was a tough night for Stu Skinner, but hey, Stuart Skinner has gone through tough nights before. This isn't a Skinner can't get the job done in net either. So anyways, that's enough about the Oilers. But
yeah, the Edmonton Oilers are fine. I think I saw about 7 times they were touching the puck and yawning at the same time today. This was not the Edmonton Oilers. This was a very, very unmotivated team. This looked like a Winnipeg Jets team that is pissed off that they got knocked out of the playoffs and has been chewing on that for 5 months and chomping at the bit to get back and show that they can get over this. And the Edmonton Oilers, to your point, look like a team that almost won the Stanley Cup and right now are going to have a hard time finding motivation to play regular season hockey before getting back and building up towards the playoffs. I just wanted to
I was just going to wrap this up. Schickster with a good one here. I mean, this was kind of my point. When the Jets had the 35 in a row with 3 or fewer, 20 of which were 2 or fewer, that was basically with the roster of forwards that we saw today, right? That was with Nemestikov at 2C. Exactly. Monahan wasn't part of it for very long of it anyway. So anyways, I just wanted to sort of reiterate that, highlight that point quickly here.
No problem. Just quickly, I'm going to go to the analysts there and say you're asking why I think it's like that. I just think that the Jets left a real sour taste in the mouths of a lot of the analysts out there with the way that they performed last season in the playoffs, as they did, I think, with the vast majority of Winnipeg Jets fans. And to me, this is one of these show me years. I fully expect what we saw here tonight to be a very good representation of what the Jets are going to be throughout the regular season. I don't think they're going to have a problem making the playoffs. I think they're going to be a razor sharp team like they were tonight, and they're going to take on a lot of teams that are going to, slowly build throughout the year. I think that what we're going to see is very similar to the last couple of years, where when other teams start to hit their 4th and 5th gear, then we'll see kind of what the Jets are made of. But the Jets, to me, are a team that goes out and they make hay early against other teams because they go into 5th gear when a team like the Oilers tonight were in the 2nd gear. Right? Yeah. I don't care who's got the faster car. If one's in 5th gear and one's in 2nd gear, the car in 5th gear is going to win. The Jets do a good job at that. So I think what the analysts are missing, Ken, is what we know about this team and that they're very razor sharp. They've locked into their defensive game. They've been playing it for the better part of 2 years with some kind of falling apart there. I think some of the analysts thought that would have broken them last year and they would be searching and trying to find a different way. And coming into the season, I thought maybe you would see that, but what we saw in training camp was quite clearly a team that was completely and totally fully bought into playing the same style, the same defensive brand of hockey. Luke Gadzik on the panel, I thought, put it really well. When you're playing that utilitarian game that the Jets play versus the kind of high-end, carnival skilled game that the Oilers do, that lower skill game that's just grind is going to shine through while that high skill game tries to figure its way out, which is why you can see the Stars on a night like this are the 3rd and 4th line. So that's where I think they're going there because I mentioned the 4th line. You talked about Rasmus Kupari there. I just wanted to say I thought that Kupari responded really well in this training camp to the challenge to his job. His job was challenged. It was starting to look questionable whether or not he was going to be back in that spot. So I think that Rasmus Kupari looked good in camp. We said that before. You and I are on the same page that Rasmus Kupari gives himself a lot of opportunities. The problem is when he gets opportunities, he almost knows nothing on how to do with them. His goal here tonight, which a lot of people have as the lamplighter, and keep your lamplighters coming here, people, that goal is just an unbelievable play by Josh Morrissey. If you see the replay, he does not look. No one on the ice knows where that puck is going. So he catches Stuart Skinner on the far side. Rasmus Kupari is just putting this puck on the net. He's not putting it top corner. He's not blowing it. It goes off the goalie skating in, Ken, when he's got a wide open. He doesn't tuck it on the inside of the post or anything like that. He's
offside 1T though. I mean, that's a tough play. I mean, it's not like he shot it in the middle of the net.
He's in
Right.
NHL. They're making a one timer. Like it's a one-time sweep shot. It's not the hardest play in the world. I'm not taking anything away from the guy. He got in the
Sounds
right
like you
spot.
are.
He put himself in a spot to like he found the seam, right? There's no seam if you don't go to the spot where the seam is.
Yeah.
So he's doing well. But like, come on, Ken. This isn't
It's not
Patrick
barred
Line.
down. I didn't
This
say
isn't
that.
Patrick Line.
It's a
Taking
tough
a
play.
one-timer. Regardless, Rasmus Kupari, I think we're seeing a guy who's elevated his game, who walked in last year, was given an opportunity on the fourth line, walked in here, saw a guy like Gabe Velarde go to the top line and started thinking, hey, us Kings guys who came in here,
Yep.
this team believes in us. We're going to have an opportunity. And then ended up losing that opportunity, getting outperformed by guys like David Gustafsson. I think there's a new edge to Rasmus Kupari. I think he's pushing his game as far as he can get it. So I'm interested to see where it goes. I still think the ridiculousness from the vast majority of the Winnipeg sports media and what they thought he was going to be coming in last year and some of the claims we heard about him were ridiculous. Renny was right last season. Let's be completely honest. I was the lone voice saying this, and I was far and away right on this. But I am liking the direction he's going in. I'm interested to see where he's going. But I will say this, as good as Kupari played, Rat River Rebel says Kupari will finish the year as the 2C. Let me tell you, Rat River Rebel, this is an all-time cold take. Things that will never happen, I'll take for 200, please, Alex. I just wanted to say this. You can talk to some of the people around here, Rat River. I know you've been around for a while, but talk to some of the T-Wills. I've been known in the past or accused in the past of maybe having some cold takes before. You know what I did? I went out and I got myself an Arctic Spas hot tub because I'm going to tell you something. There's no such thing as a cold take in an Arctic Spas hot tub. So, ladies and gentlemen, with us this year, Arctic Spas, if you got cold takes like our gentleman right here, Arctic Spas is the place to go. They've got the Spa Boy package in there, which is basically just set it and forget it. In the wintertime, you don't have to worry about it. They are built for Manitoba winters. I am a happy Spa Boy. I will tell you that much. And I'm happy to say that the kind of cold takes that Rat River Rebel has put out here today, they can be taken care of, and they can be taken care of in your Arctic Spas hot tub. I just wanted to quickly too, because I've really kind of going on it here. Connor Hellebuck, you touched on it earlier. Connor Hellebuck has a great night here. Couple saves here that are definitely worthy of the keg save of the game. But this is just another one here. This is, to your point, 30 plus shots, but there's not a lot of fire drill situations going on here. This is Connor Hellebuck being the best goalie in the world, playing by a team that plays really great team defense. This isn't the Winnipeg Jets getting completely bailed out here tonight, even though if you looked at the shot clock, it would maybe look like a night where Connor Hellebuck stole a game and Stuart Skinner blew up the game. That's only half true. Stu Skinner does blow up this game, but Connor Hellebuck plays a really great game behind a really great team defense. Again, Ken, we're just picking up where we left off last season in the regular season with the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, to me, the biggest thing was timely saves, Sean. I mean, I thought that the save off Arvidsson early in the second period was massive in terms of just sort of stabilizing. I mean, I thought he made the thing for me that I saw, Sean, and he made a ton. What were we talking about last year in the playoffs? All of the goals from the front of the net, the tips, and the ability to fight through. And I thought Hellebuck was reading the play incredibly well. I thought he made a couple of really good saves, getting out of his crease and challenging. There was a nice Zach Hyman tip. There were a couple other plays where he read the cross ice pass. I thought he was excellent there. I just thought his reads were excellent. And Sean, for a guy who didn't practice, a couple days, yes, he went out with Wade Flaherty before getting on the plane, but with all he went through in his family situation, the details of which we don't know, but we know what affected him mentally for sure. But I mean, he didn't play since, he wasn't on the ice with the Jets really much in terms of practicing, and since the Friday night game against Calgary. And here he is just dialed in and locked in for game one. So I really thought he was excellent in the game. Like I said, when I say he wasn't under siege, it was because the Jets, like you said, didn't have a ton of fire drills, but he still made a bunch of timely saves. And I thought his reads were really good for a guy that, hadn't really been involved in team situations since the previous Friday. So I thought Hellebuck was great. And again, when a team has the best goalie in the world, certainly one of them, and his regular season success has been undeniable. And I mean, as Jack Michaels pointed out on the broadcast, Sean, I mean, that series against Edmonton, I know we've had our debates, and yes, Mike Smith wasn't good, but I mean, we've been raving about Marc-Andre Fleury being 960 in the Western Conference Final. Hellebuck was 950 in that series against the Oilers. So,
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to, not saying he has to do that every series, but if he gets back to anywhere close to that goalie, that's why I think the Jets could win more than one round this year. Anyways, just that'll be something we talk about in April and May if it gets that far. But Hellebuck was excellent. There's no doubt about it. And a variety of saves would be candidates for that keg save of the game for sure.
Are you saying that it's going to be a topic of conversation heading into the playoffs that Connor Hellebuck,
It should
if
be,
he
yes.
just turns things around and plays like he does in the regular season, could take the Jets somewhere? It's what we hear every year, Ken, from every analyst who says, hey, the Jets, one place we know they have the advantage is in goal. That has never turned out to be the case. This is another one of those I'm at the stage.
I just told you when it was the case.
Believe it when I see it scenario here. But one of these days we'll get to it. I'm thinking it'll happen at some point. But boy, oh boy, I think it's lazy when we get into the Jets clearly have the advantage in the net when it comes to the playoffs. That hasn't proven to be the case. Okay, let's move on here to the very obvious story.
Except in Game 7 against Pekka Renny and Mike Smith.
Oh my God, we've been through this so many times. Pekka Renny was terrible in that game. Everyone here knows that they don't need to hear it anymore. Kyle Connor, everybody tonight. So 7 straight seasons he starts this season with a goal in the opening game. That's a record, ladies and gentlemen. He was tied with, I think, 3 players before this. Not anymore. He's all alone. That was, we've been seeing him whipping the puck in practice, Ken, taking that pass exactly like that, working, I believe it was with Davis Payne, who's been sending him, passing that puck, kind of rolls off of the pylon that they have set up for him, and then he's just whipping that shot. Doesn't surprise me for 1 second. Although I do think Stu Skinner didn't have the best night here tonight. I also think that Mason Appleton shot, I don't have it. That's a great shot. Kyle Connor's shot, unbelievable shot. It's not like these are going in bad spots. They're tucking them right in. But just, Ken, your thoughts on what it takes to be a player who comes to play on game 1 of the season the way that Kyle Connor. It's not easy to score goals in the NHL, and yet Kyle Connor walks into game 1 and makes it look easy time and time again.
Yeah, and it's not like Kyle Connor's flying under the radar, Sean. He's been one of the most productive players in the entire league since he's entered the league as a full-time player. So he's getting lots of attention, and just his ability to shoot it. And Sean, I would say this too. I mean, we'll get into the power play in a minute, but Scott O'Neill pointed it out in his postgame. I mean, part of the reason why he's able to sneak that shot past is because the goalie knows that Gabriel Velarde is hugging the post, much like Zach Hyman did for a ton of goals last year. He knows that Nikolai Ehlers is available for a high slot tip shot redirection. So I'm not saying that Skinner was necessarily cheating on the play, but I am saying he had to definitely be cognizant of those 2 other options. And if you're not paying full attention to Kyle Connor on the power play, he can zing it past you with his release. So I think his ability to score is, undeniable. I said it in our warm-up newsletter today. Honestly, I've said this once before, 2 years ago in Banff. I think that Kyle Connor has the ability to be a 50-goal scorer. And I don't think that it's a stretch for me to suggest that.
No.
His career high is 47. And that year, Kyle was sour because he missed at least 1 or 2 games because of the COVID protocols that were in place. Honestly, I think that if he is able to stay healthy like he has for the majority of his career, Kyle could score 50 this year, and that's not a stretch. That's a fact. He has been in the Rocket Richard Trophy race before with Austin Matthews and company, and that release is just outstanding. And one other thing, Sean, it has nothing to do with his goal. He was targeted. Leon took a run at him, and you know what? I'm okay with it. I know that the Jets preach discipline, and you don't want to have Kyle Connor doing this every game. But I have absolutely no problem with him going back and slashing Draisaitl after he took a run at him. Don't you think that's? I'm not saying that's how skilled players get space on the ice, but I think that your opponent actually respects you a little bit if you go back at him and slash him in that situation. I don't want to see, if I'm Scott Arniel, I don't want to see him do that in game 7 of the playoffs. But in game 1 of the regular season, you absolutely have no issue if you're Scott Arniel with your players showing a bit of frustration and going back at Draisaitl after he takes a run at you. Don't you agree?
I'll tell you this, once you've won one Lady Bing, you don't need to win another. That's not, no one's going to say you won 9 Lady Bings in your career. And congratulations on that. Once you've won that Lady Bing, forget about it. You can move on. He can move on to the place where, what I like about this is it comes at a time in the game where the Oilers, you could tell, tried to add a little bit of stank to the game to see if they couldn't do that to turn things around. And the Jets got back to this idea, which I think they've been really good with in the past. When teams want to take it into the gutter, the Jets typically handle it well. Now, one of the guys that handled that game in the gutter quite often was Brendan Dillon. He's gone. Now, Sandberg steps up in his place. Sandberg isn't the most aggressive guy, right? But you had Dillon and you had Adam Lowry handling a lot of business. And now one of those two guys is gone. So I just think we talk about like scoring by committee and defense by committee. The Jets, I think this year are going to have like a little bit of toughness by committee, because you cannot have Adam Lowry heading out and fighting your battles for you all year long. He probably did it too much last year. And now with half the load being, taken out of the lineup, there's just not going to be enough of him to go around to do that time and time again. So I think there needs to be, moments like that with a guy like KC where he just basically says, I'm going to go take care of this. And to your point, Ken, he goes and he does that. And even if it doesn't have an effect on the game tonight, I think the next time the Winnipeg Jets play the Edmonton Oilers, and then, hey, if they ever end up lining up against each other in the playoffs, there's this kind of understanding that you're just not going to push me around and I'm just going to take it. Okay. I know that I'm not one of our big guys, but I'm going to go out and I'm going to make sure that that I know what's going on here and I'm not going to be pushed around. I like it. I like the move by Kyle Connor. It's Renny approved in this situation here for whatever that's worth. That maybe it's stamped, made in, I don't know, green ink or something like that. But hey, let's move on to the power play and what you saw in that game compared to what we've been witnessing in the preseason, but also we've seen a lot of practice in the preseason and in training camp by the Winnipeg Jets trying to get to what we saw on this night.
Yeah, it's just not stagnant anymore. There were too many times where we had stationary situations for the Winnipeg Jets, dusting the puck off along the half wall. That just isn't happening. I mean, first goal happens really quickly, a bunch of puck touches, but I actually was quite impressed by the second one, Sean. I mean, I thought that the zone entry on the Scheifele goal is outstanding. Gabriel Velarde whips it across to Ehlers. Ehlers' great snap pass to Scheifele. I love the way that one came about for them because it was off the rush. Then there were pressure points throughout the neutral zone that the Jets navigated really nicely. But on the first one, just what you're seeing is what we saw in the preseason. It's getting to the first shot quickly, creating the chaos off of that, and the attack mode that the Jets are in. And again, we know what a Jets power play looks like when it's operating in the top 5 or 10 in the NHL, Sean. We saw it for a number of years when they had all the weaponry there, when it was Byfuglien at the top, when it was Wheeler on the right wing boards, when it was Laine on the cross ice 1T, when it was Scheifele in the high slot, after Paul Stastny got there, Stastny down low. I mean, this is a power play that looks familiar. It's not the same handedness and it's not the same weaponry, but there are a lot of weapons and there are a lot of options for the Jets when they move the puck quickly. Josh Morrissey is a guy who's got a good shot from the top, and I think you'll see that shot be more effective this year because of all the other options surrounding things here. And I just really like the puck movement. I like the zone entries. I like the ability to move the puck quickly and the ability to move around more. To me, Sean, it's a lot more like the Tampa Bay Lightning power play where you have a lot of motion with Kucherov, where you have Braden Point all over. And hey, that power play is going to look different without Steven Stamkos, but I think that their core principles will still serve them well, and which Davis Payne is obviously connected with this group so far. And again, they need to do it over the course of 82 games. But what I am seeing is a group that it easily, if they move from the bottom third to the middle third, and if they can move into the top 10, that's a huge boost for the Winnipeg Jets in terms of production and goal scoring and all of those things that were sometimes missing last year for stretches.
One of the things that is really understated, and we saw it here tonight, Ken, but on the breakout, what will happen is the puck will be carried out, and behind the puck carrier will be a crisscross by two players. So the Jets do the kind of push the puck up ice and then try and take the rhythm out of the defensive team by dropping the puck back. Except what the Jets do now is they drop it with one guy cutting one way and one guy cutting the other way. And based on how the defense responds to that, they can drop the puck and change the puck from going in this direction to that direction. Now, they were doing that tonight, and that on the Mark Scheifele goal, they get a really, really clean zone entry off of it. And what it ends up creating is a rush power play goal. And so I thought that was a little bit understated. Yes, I know what we're talking about. And Ken, you and I have talked for years on this show about the movement that the Tampa Bay Lightning have always been able to get on their power play, and that the Winnipeg Jets basically play the exact same system, but a stationary version of it, and that they just need to get a little bit more movement in there to try and get things going. Not only did they do that, but I thought it should be noted that there's a whole bunch of different parts of the of your power play. If you're not able to get a zone entry and get it set up, it doesn't matter how good your puck movement is in the zone if you can never get set up in the zone. And you could see sometimes the Jets power play would struggle last year. Once the other team got it down the ice, the Jets had a hard time getting it back into the zone. That was just, Ken, I love watching teams, regardless of who they are, and coaching philosophies put into play, understanding what they're trying to do with those philosophies, seeing the players buy into it, and then seeing it executed like that in a game. That was just absolutely a perfect drop of what the Winnipeg Jets are trying to do with their zone entries. It was neat to see it happen. Going to be really interesting to watch this power play this season and see kind of where everything gets taken here. Ken, just wanted to give a shout out before we move on to Cambrian Credit Union, back for their fourth season with us here, Ken. Both of us Cambrian Credit Union members, not customers, but members, both of us with unfee banking accounts. Why? Well, we bank for free. We love doing that. Got our mortgage with them. Families involved with it. Great to have them back. Great to have them part. I mean, it's about as legit as it gets having Cambrian Credit Union on board with you. And I just wanted to say this as well. I think the Edmonton Oilers deserve the Pristine Roofing wake-up call on this night. I don't think it's the biggest deal they lose this game, but also as a guy who called the the Edmonton Oilers to go to the Cup final last year, the way that they started the season and basically only had a few points after 15 games or something like that. They needed to wake up earlier last year, and I don't think they ran out of gas in the Stanley Cup final or anything like that. But that's playing with fire, what they did last year. So they definitely need the Pristine Roofing wake-up call to get things going. They can't let it slide like they did last year. I get how it goes. Pittsburgh was that team for years that, the regular season didn't matter. It was all about the playoffs. And then now you've seen with the last couple of years, at some point that catches up with you, that mindset. The Edmonton Oilers stank up the joint tonight. They were bad. They looked terrible. They looked like they weren't competing. They got to get going here. So they need the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. And you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 1:09 a.m. at 1-204-981-6289. If you don't want to call him, you can call Pristine Roofing at 204-237-7663 for all your roofing, exteriors, softening, facial, all those different kind of things. They're the people to talk to if you have any exteriors issues. Good time now to get going on a list for next year, folks, because it fills up fast. And once again, just thank you. If you hadn't heard on our show before this, the the winner of the Pay It Forward program, where Pristine Roofing gave away a roof that ended up coming in at just under $10,000, was from the Kenny and Renny show. So thanks to Pristine Roofing for enriching one of our viewers like that. Josh Morrissey, you want to just dive just a little bit deeper? I know you've been bold. I know you think he's going to be top 3. What'd you see from him here tonight?
Yeah, just awesome effort. Just under 24 minutes, really involved in all facets of the game. I know that this is we always talk about these things, and yes, every game's important, but I mean, he's close with Leon Draisaitl. They go back to their days as teenagers with the Prince Albert Raiders, and they both went to the Kelowna Rockets and won a Western Hockey League championship together and went to the Memorial Cup together. So I know he gets up for those games. He's played with Connor McDavid on a variety of stages as well, with Team Canada. So he enjoys the challenge of going up against those guys. So yes, we always talk about Neil Pionk getting under Connor McDavid's skin, but Josh Morrissey had a massive impact in keeping those two big guns off the board tonight. Thought he was excellent, and again, just involved in all facets, offense, defense. Again, we talk about Team Canada often, and we will talk about the Four Nations face-off often, but I think that Josh is a lock to be on Team Canada, and I think that he's going to be showing it pretty much every single night out here this year.
This is nice from Paolo, who is the
awesome job, Paolo,
listener. Who, if you hadn't heard the story, Paolo's parents passed away, and his sisters weren't in a position to be able to afford a new roof for the house. Paolo said that he was going to take out a loan regardless, but put in for that, and that story really resonated with the folks over at Pristine Roofing. So congratulations, Paolo. You're deserving for that. That's I wanted to get into this because we were talking about Brad Lambert and maybe the idea of him getting into the Jets lineup. And in order to do that, maybe what you would have to do is kind of start breaking up something that was, a big conversation with us last year, the Jets' third line, and find a way to maybe get him on a line with the likes of Nino Niederreiter, and then try and create 4 more balanced scoring lines. But in doing that, you would be going away from a line today that Louis DeBrusque, colleague of mine, really great guy, thinks is the best third line in the NHL. I agree wholeheartedly with that sentiment. But Ken, are we, with a performance like that from the third line, lighting the torch, getting things going, suffocating defensively, grinding on a team like the Edmonton Oilers the way that they did, are we already kind of in the territory where it's like, listen, third line, leave it alone, set it and forget it, just like my Arctic Spas hot tub, set it and forget it, and just let them go for the year? Because listen, you've done a lot of things in the past year. You've been the lead cheerleader with Rasmus Kapari. You've drove the Gus
easy
bus
now
for a long time here. And one of the things that you led the charge on was breaking up the third line. I'm surprised you haven't called for it already, but maybe they've dashed your hopes to break them up already with the game they had here tonight. First 2 goals of the game, and just a dominant performance by Adam Lowry, Mason Appleton, and Nino Niederreiter.
Yeah, they set the tone, and they needed to. Impressive effort all around by them, for sure. My point, Sean, that I've been making with those guys previously to, saying that they might actually have other people that can check and Nino could help others that could score, is that, this is a group that we talk about balanced scoring. The Jets already have they have 4 scoring lines when the Lowry line has been productive. So, no one could have anticipated Nino Niederreiter going 21 games without a goal to end the year. I mean, he had 4 assists in that stretch, but, that was unexpected. I mean, last year, Mason Appleton had an unbelievable start, and rightfully so. He was doing an excellent job offensively. Now, that tailed off a little bit, but I mean, he still had 14 goals, which is a great year. Now, again, can he get 20? I mean, I'm not sure. If he does, he's going to certainly be cashing in as a UFA. But I mean, one of the most important things Mason Appleton said to me in our first conversation during camp, we want to be the best third line in hockey. So that is something that we often give credit to the scorers and everything else. This was one of the best lines on the Jets last year in all facets, puck possession, underlying numbers. Yeah, I mean, did they go through stretches where they didn't score? All three of them, of course, but they did a lot of good things even on the even on the nights when they didn't score a lot. And to me, they just sort of set the tone tonight, Sean. And that's something that they do a lot, which is why their head coach often throws them over the boards first. In all the debates about second line center, I mean, Lowry is the second line center in terms of minutes, and he will continue to play that role on a lot of nights. Whether or not some people like it, that's too bad for them. I mean, um, yeah, I mean, that line, I love the way that they played. I think they did an excellent job. And I mean, again, most nights they're going to be together. It doesn't mean they have to be together every single night, but that's a tone setting line. So they're going to be together for the majority of the season, would be my expectation.
I just wanted to point out here, I'm kind of getting the correction police are at it out here. Snackatoba says best third line because they're the second line. Spency says Lowry is the second line. Renny getting corrected here left and right. I go with the traditional idea of that hammer that beats you, but we should just get quickly into this. The second line of the Winnipeg Jets, or what is supposed to be the second scoring line. I know that everyone was saying that when Brad Lambert was trying out for that line, he was trying out for 2C. And I don't think anyone talks about Nikolai Ehlers playing on the third line of the Winnipeg Jets. But just quickly, because we got to get to some of our plays of the game here, Ken, just your thoughts on that second line. I thought they had a hard time taking off tonight, to use an airplane analogy.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's no disputing that. I didn't see a lot of flow with that line. I mean, one shot on goal, one shot attempt for the trio. So again, in a night where the Jets ran the opposition out of the building, and they only generated one shot on goal, and that was by Perfetti. So yes, I mean, do I think that line was snapping it around crisply? No, but would I be overly concerned? I think we saw last year. I mean, I don't see a need to break up the line after 3 or 4 games like what we saw with Cole Perfetti going from the second line center to a second line winger in Game 4. I mean, they deserve the amount of runway they're going to get. Do I think that if you're Scott O'Neill, you'd like to see more production or generation from that line? Of course you would, but it was not a concern because they'd had taken care of business on the offensive side. Now, I don't think that they I didn't see them getting hemmed in their own end for extensive amount of times. So I wouldn't be overly concerned on that front either. But, do I think that that's how they're going to look in the majority of the games this year? No. I mean, these are talented players. I think they'll get it sorted out and figure it out. But no, I don't think it was their best effort in terms of what they were able to generate offensively. I think Scott O'Neill would like to see more, and I would think that all three players would like to see more. How I would describe it.
Lots of room for improvement to come for the Winnipeg Jets second line out there. All right, Ken, let's launch into it. Time for the Johnston Group. We've got you covered. Play of the game. You've got a good one for this, Ken.
Yeah, I mean, Hayden Fleury had to leave the game momentarily after that point shot deflected off of a stick, went off Colin Miller's body, and somehow snuck underneath his visor and caught him in the face. But that's not the play that I'm choosing. What I'm choosing is after he had that happen to him in a 5-0 game, there's Hayden Fleury laying out and blocking a shot from Evan Bouchard with the back of his pants on a night where, just showing how important it is, A, for a guy to establish himself with a new team, but B, what it means for, someone who played on one of the best defensive hockey teams around with the Carolina Hurricanes, why you're on the ice late in the game and you're not being casual. Hayden Fleury lays out and blocks Evan Bouchard's shot. That is a typical play, what we look for when it comes to the Johnston Group. We've got you covered play of the game. I thought it was just a fantastic effort at a time where it would have been easy just to allow the shot to go through, but that's not how the Jets view things. And if you're Hayden Fleury, that you have familiarity with Dean Chenoweth, who was the defense coach with the Carolina Hurricanes. If you'd like to stay in that 6th slot, those are the types of things that you do if you're Hayden Fleury, who I thought was excellent. Both he and Colin Miller, both in the north of 15 minutes, I think north of 16 minutes, or Miller was north of 15 and Fleury was north of 16. I thought they were both steady and on a night where a lot of eyes were on that third pairing.
Give a shout out to the system that Rick Bonus came up with, and that Scott Arneal, for the most part, is really following along here. That system has taken and made a team look great in front of Connor Hellebuck, helped him win a Vezina last year. But it's also taken, in my opinion, and all the worries, there were worries going to last year about the Winnipeg Jets defense core, worries this year again after losing some of those players. It's a system that it seems that defensemen are able to walk into, able to understand, able to really contribute. Fleury looked really good in camp, and he looked good on this night here as well, fitting into a system that really is, once again, in game one. And if it continues like this, and I expect it to, because this just looks a lot like what we saw the Jets at their best last year, is the true star of this Winnipeg Jets team is that system. But you're right. Great play for Fleury. Johnson Group got you covered. Play of the game. And do you run a small business in Canada? If so, look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Okay, Ken, moving along. We're once again giving $50 gift certificates away to the Keg. We got to get rolling on this quick here, Ken. So you know what to do. Hashtag the Keg save of the game. Let us know what your save of the game was. Ken, what's it for you?
Yeah, one-timer save on Leon Draisaitl. Just an outstanding push by Hellebuck to get across, and then he caught the rebound also. So I thought that was excellent.
Yeah, nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Worthy recipient of the Keg save of the game. As Ken, you were a worthy recipient of a great meal at the Keg when
I ever?
Stacy and
So are
Laura
you.
went there to celebrate Ken's 4th hole-in-one. If you haven't heard, you just heard it now, his 4th hole-in-one. We were there on Saturday at the Keg celebrating at their Gary location downtown. What a place to celebrate. The drinks were great. The wine was great. The food was great. The dessert was great.
The service was great.
Well, of course. Yeah, that actually, the service was lights out, was it not?
Indeed.
She was phenomenal. And I think it'd been there since, what was it, 2004, 2006 or something like that. They take it seriously there. They get the job done. Anyways, you know what to do. Share with us your hashtag the Keg save of the game, and you're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine Keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. That first one will be handed out next game. And that brings us to the 8-pack of frosty, delicious Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to us by our friends at TCB. The Lamplighter of the night. What do you got, Ken?
Yeah, it'd be easy for me to go Kapari after the 69 game drought, but I'm going Adam Lowry's goal. Wasn't the prettiest, but it was the tone setter of the game for me. I thought that third line really got the Jets going, and yeah, I mean, Skinner made a great save on the first one. Looked like it was in, and the bank shot for me, that was an important goal. Honorable mention to Kapari, and not just because Kapari scored, but just because of the read that Josh Morrissey made on that goal. But on a night where all the eyes were on the Oilers and how would the Jets respond, the Jets kind of dictated the play after that.
Yeah, I don't know how it always ends up. Like, you're saying exactly what I'm going to say here. For me, it's the Kapari goal. It's the read by Josh Morrissey. It's the no-look pass by Josh Morrissey. It is really, no one on the ice knows what's happening until it's on Kapari's stick and it's in the back of the net. I'm not trying to crap on Kapari here by saying that the goal is beautiful because of the Josh Morrissey pass. Good for him to get into that spot and get into that open lane. But that was high-end stuff out there. Anyways, that's my lamplighter of the game. That was Ken's lamplighter of the game, was the Lowry, but it doesn't matter what we think. It matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag TCB lamplighter of the game. You're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your own 8-pack, head on down to their tap room at 11290 Kenniston, where they've got great beers, great pizzas. They've got it all. And hey, all you Brandonites out there or Western Manitobans, they're about to open up a location out there. So you get in on the frosty, delicious goodness that all of us here in Winnipeg have been enjoying for a long time. That's it for us. For our, what's that?
A great meal there also. the week
Yes,
before.
of course. Well, I never leave that place, so people automatically know that. Great first show. Really great to have everybody back. Loved you being on board. Loved all your comments. Can't wait to do it again. We won't have to wait long, as the Jets home opener is this Friday when they take on the Chicago Blackhawks. We'll see you after that. Bye, everybody.